103.3 The GOAT.
Yeah, that's the one.
K277DQ Lafayette, 1420 KPEL Lafayette. It's a good thing goats have 4 stomachs. Otherwise, there's no way we could swallow some of these takes.
Hey, goat, what's going on out there?
103.3 The GOAT. The greatest sports talk of all time.
Great Scott!
The Great Scott Show.
And as they head into the final furlong, all of the other radio stations and radio hosts are left in the wake of a keen turn of speed by the Great Scott Show, the champion.
With Scott Prather.
Steal the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into the 8 o'clock hour of the Great Scott Show. On a Tuesday, a man that has, we'll call it a triple header of sorts, because he starts with really his most daunting task of the day, and that's having to sit across from me and listen to me. I know he's got plenty of experience in that realm, not to say that it's, the easiest thing to do. Jay Walker, he will be calling the education game, which we talked about last hour with Coach Broadhead. He will be calling the game tonight between UL Men's Hoops and the Harvard of the South, Loyola University of New Orleans at the Cajun Dome. Jay's got both the calls. We've got them both on the airways for you today. He's here.
Hi.
How you feeling?
I'm doing good. It's been a better part of a month since we've seen each other.
It's been a month since we've
been on the radio together.
Been on the radio here. So people's ears were just starting to sort of be healed.
Right.
And now
scabbing up. Now they're bleeding again.
Right. Especially, with Terrible Tune Tuesday coming up later in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Man, a lot to talk about. Let me ask you something that I'm sure you have been texted and asked about a lot since Saturday evening.
Okay.
Yeah, where the Cajuns going to play in a bowl game?
Yeah, I have been asked that a lot. And you realize none of us have the answer. Okay.
Right. There are several options, as I was saying on the show yesterday, but there's nothing like definitive right now because there's still some things up in the air.
Well, yes. Somebody texted me yesterday evening and asked, and my response was, if it's not Shreveport, I will be surprised. It is my belief they will be in the Independence Bowl. Representative from the Independence Bowl was at Texas State, came in, visited with Gerald and Craig and me at halftime.
They were at the Georgia Southern game at Cajun Field as well.
They were. Now, they've also been at a couple of Southern Miss games, too. I mean, just to be fair. But I think that we are the Independence Bowl's first choice. The thing you run into, though, nowadays is ESPN controls most of that. And so, just because you want somebody and somebody wants you doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Let me ask you a few questions about the Independence Bowl. Now, Army is tied into it, right?
Correct.
And if they win Saturday, they're bowl eligible.
They don't play until a week from Saturday.
If they win a week from Saturday, they're bowl eligible.
No. If they win a week from Saturday, they're 6-6 with 2 FCS wins.
So they're not bowl eligible.
Which means they would have to get a waiver.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
I don't think the Independence Bowl is going to wait on Army because of the fact they would not be bowl eligible even with a win.
Yeah. And right now there's 79 bowl eligible teams. And there's 82 slots, but there's still 7 teams that could become bowl eligible.
Well, the biggest thing is Buffalo and Akron are going to play on Friday. Buffalo's going to be a big favorite, and they get bowl eligible with a win. That would make 80. Then, there's been speculation ever since Saturday about what about 81 and 82? And is it going to be 6-6 teams? Because even if you can't count one of the wins, 5-6 is better than 5-7. That's been the argument for some of that. But my sources tell me that what the Bowl folks are going to do is they're going to take the two highest APR 5 and 7 teams. And that would be Rice and UNLV. Now, UNLV may go ahead and decline because they just fired their coach yesterday. And the next in line after that, I think, is Auburn. But we don't know what they're going to do about the last two slots. We aren't 100% sure.
You've got 5 bowl-eligible teams out of Conference USA, I think. You have UTSA, obviously, North Texas, Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, and UAB.
That sounds right.
Conference USA is tied into the Independence Bowl.
No.
They're not?
The American.
It's American?
Yep.
Okay. The American.
Now, I asked the guy from the Independence Bowl. I said, if we're playing there, who's the opponent? He said it would be one of 3 teams. And he mentioned Memphis, SMU, and Houston.
Yeah. That makes sense. I would have guessed that. Memphis, East Carolina, Houston, SMU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Tulane. Obviously, they're trying to play to get to the Cotton Bowl.
Right.
Those are all the bowl-eligible teams in the American Athletic. A UL Houston matchup at the Independence Bowl?
Oh, where do I sign?
I think both teams and the bowl would like that. You know, the Cajuns have never played in Shreveport. I don't know that Houston has played in the Independence Bowl before.
I don't remember them ever. They may have, but I don't remember them doing it.
I mean, I think it would be I think that would be fun. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I'd like I said, where do I sign?
What are other possibilities for the Cajuns?
You know, the ESPN owns, what is it, a dozen different bowls. And so they conceivably, technically, could be slotted in any of them. Not the Bahamas, because UAB is playing Miami of Ohio in that game. That's already been decided. You know, I've heard Frisco. Frisco has come up a few times from people. I've heard First Responder from a couple of folks. I've heard Lending Tree from a couple of folks. Those are really the names that I've heard. Independence, 3 times as much as any other name. I guess second would be Frisco.
What about the Cure Bowl?
You know what? I think the Cure Bowl wants a team from the East.
Okay.
You know, I'm not going to be surprised if Marshall is there. I really won't be surprised if Coastal Carolina's there.
Now, isn't that one in
Orlando? No, that's Orlando.
Okay.
The Myrtle Beach Bowl is where the Myrtle Beach Bowl is.
I remember when the Cajuns played at the Cure. I didn't know if it had moved.
No, it's still there. And honestly, from a student-athlete experience standpoint, of all of the ESPN-owned bowls, the Cure would probably be the most desirable.
You mean players would rather be in Orlando than Shreveport?
I think the players would rather get a couple hours to themselves at Universal Studios and stay at a resort on the property. Yeah.
You mean they wouldn't want to just be in Shreveport for like a while?
You know what, though? You know, I went to the Independence Bowl website. And by the way, if anybody's got questions about anything concerning the Independence Bowl, their website's great. I mean, their website spells everything out. And their representative, talking to him the other night, and we didn't have a lot of time. We had about 10 minutes, I guess, talked about the Independence Bowl tries to gear everything toward the student-athlete experience. So they may have some things planned for them.
Good.
And you know, maybe they got a really nice gift or whatever. But
bowl gifts. I love the list of bowl gifts every year.
Yeah, I know. But best experience that we ever had was going to Orlando. That was strong.
That was during COVID too, wasn't it? No.
That was in 18.
What am I talking about? Yeah, no,
that was in 18.
Lending Tree was COVID.
Lending Tree.
Right before COVID.
It was right before COVID. First Responder was in 20.
Yeah. they all mix together in my mind. No, yeah, that was that was the season, Billy Napier's first season, where if ULM hits a field goal, you're not bowl eligible. Suddenly, you're playing in a conference, or no, you're playing in a conference championship game because they missed it. So you end up playing multiple games. You end up playing 14 games that year, and it all kind of was close there for a minute, but it was it was against Tulane. And speaking of the Wave, did you think that Tulane was going to be that team this year?
No. And if anybody tells you they thought so, they're lying to you.
I did not see that coming. No. And when they lost by 1 point to Southern Miss, I'll be honest, I was like, well, it was fun while it lasted, and then they just started reeling off these wins and looking really impressive. And I'm glad for them that they have their stadium on campus. I think they built it the right way. They kept it small. Look, I remember the Tulane team in '98 that should have been in a BCS bowl game. They were just skull dragging everybody. I mean, they played in the Superdome, and it just looked like there's just empty seats everywhere for a dominant team. I know some folks that work on the broadcast team. I mean, they've generated some buzz this season for them, and I think it'd be really cool if they win this weekend and get to go play in the Cotton Bowl. What I said,
color me petty, but I ain't rooting for them.
I get it. I get it. What I said was most disappointing about LSU's loss, because I didn't think they were going to beat Georgia. To be honest, I didn't.
No.
What was most disappointing is they fumbled the opportunity. An LSU Tulane Cotton Bowl would have been plenty of storylines for that. Jay wasn't rooting for it, but there would have been plenty of storylines for that.
There would have been a lot of storylines, you're right.
I just know when my dad was back at like Tulane med school years ago, he was like, he talks about how it was like a real rivalry.
Sure it was.
When people talk about LSU's rival, I'm like, they don't really have a true rival in football, but it used to be Tulane.
Yep.
It would have been interesting, but that ship has sailed. Are we just going to have mass chaos for the college football playoff, or is it going to chalk this weekend?
I don't know if it's going to chalk, but if there's one thing I've learned about the college football playoff and the attention that they all try to create scenarios that ain't going to happen. Okay.
What do you mean?
Well, they start talking about the 5, 6, 7, even the 8th rated schools and how they can get there.
Oh, I got you right.
All
three of these teams lose. Then maybe they have a shot to slip back in.
I mean, look, Georgia is in regardless. They could lose to LSU, still be in the top 4.
That's what makes that game a little more interesting otherwise, because it's like, do they go to sleep?
Michigan's going to be in the top 4 regardless. Now,
what if
the question then comes, what happens if TCU loses, or what happens if, who's 4th, USC?
If they lose to Utah, who they've lost to this year.
Who they've already lost to. Well, does that open the door for Tennessee? Or who am I missing?
Alabama? Ohio State?
Ohio State, okay.
It would be if Ohio State got back in after getting beat down the way they did.
Well, I'll say this. There would be a lot of uproar if a 2-loss Alabama team got in before a 1-loss Ohio State team.
It would be pretty funny. I mean, yes, but if you're Bama, you're like, look, we lost.
Oh, you lost on the last play of the game twice.
To 2 teams that are, in the top 11. Whereas it's like, okay, you lost to Michigan, Ohio State, but you lost pretty handily on a big stage.
Yep.
So, you know how it is. The committee can word it however they want, and everyone will have not everyone. There will be plenty of schools that will have an argument as to why they should be. But if USC wins and TCU wins, that's it. And then if Georgia and Michigan wins, then it makes it really easy for them just to seed them.
Yeah.
But it feels like with the college football playoff, since it came around, every year we talk about once they have those first rankings, all the things that could just make it absolutely wild and crazy and have so many people ticked off. most of the time it kind of just works itself out by the time you get through, to that first Sunday in December.
I agree. And look, I love you, Patrick Crawford, but Michigan's not going to lose to Purdue. And so, Michigan here, now if Georgia stubs its toe against LSU, which I do not expect to happen, then Michigan goes in as the 1 seed. That's interesting. But no, I think Georgia and Michigan are going to remain 1 and 2. And I think USC is going to get a little revenge. The one I'm looking at is the Big 12. TCU, undefeated but living on the edge.
Just find a way to win.
Playing a team for the second time. Lee Corso said on Saturday, they asked him about Kansas State and whoever they playing this week. And he said Kansas State wins this week and they win next week.
They beat Kansas by like 20 points.
Yeah. So
TCU is a 2.5-point favorite in that game.
Yeah, and that might be one of the better conference championship games.
I was talking about who was I talking to Kansas State about? It might have been with Gerald about how they used to get a bunch of transfers back in Snyder's day, and because they would have a lot of transfers, it would always take them a little while to sort of get rolling, and he would always schedule really light early. Mm-hmm. And then by the end of the season, they'd be really good. I was like, that guy, you could say, oh, well, yeah, that seems obvious. Back then, there were things that just weren't obvious. He was just like a visionary. I mean, how else do you get to Manhattan, Kansas, and turn it into there was that year they would have been in the BCS. Michael Bishop, a quarterback, and they blew it in a conference championship game. The conference championship games have always been that last little wrinkle that has thrown some wrenches back in the BCS days. Could it happen this year with the college football playoff? I think it depends on Kansas State and Utah, because if they win, then the committee's going to have some, if it's Georgia, Bama, Michigan, Ohio State again, ESPN might like it. Do you think college football fans will like that?
No.
If TCU and USC loses, I think that's what happens. You imagine if Bama got back in and then just won it all, and it's like, what would do?
Let me tell you something. 2/3, there would be more people claiming that the thing was rigged than there would be people suggesting that the presidential election was rigged. Okay?
I mean, it's a very real possibility, Jay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very real possibility. TCU is a 2.5-point favorite. USC, who is an electric offense and a horrible defense, is a 3-point favorite. Their one loss this year was to Utah, but it was only by a point, and it was in Salt Lake, where Utah is a lot more they're just a different team at home. They're a lot more feisty. Put it there. That's one of the tougher places to play in college football, actually.
True.
Not talked about in that realm as much as it should be. 103.3 The GOAT, simulcast on 1420. Scott Prather, Jay Walker, talking Bowls, talking Cajun football and college football as a whole. Phone lines are open if you want to get in. 337-269-1077, 337-269-1077. What are your thoughts so far on Cajun men's basketball?
I think they're good.
That win at SMU was impressive.
It was. I'm going to say this. When you're a team like the Cajuns and you're going to play a team like Drake, who I think is a top 25 team, and of course you have Texas coming up in a few weeks. They might be number 1 in the country when you go over there. The only way you have a shot is you've got to really make a bunch of shots. In other words, you can't go 1 for 14 in the first half from 3-point range.
Right.
If they go 5, 6 for 14, they win that game. And I thought that's what it was going to take. I thought they had to shoot 40% or better from 3 to have a chance. And they still had a chance. No, I think this team's good. I'm going to be interested to see what happens to the makeup of this team when Kobe Julian comes back. Because Kobe Julian plays Greg Williams' position. And, and what does Bob Marlin do then? Does, since Kobe's been out so much, does he bring him off the bench? Does he start him and then start Greg Williams at the other guard spot? And if that happens, then what about Kentrell Garnett, who's your best on-ball defender?
He can shoot the three.
Yeah, Bob's going to have a decision to make when Kobe Julian comes back, and I want to see what it does to the makeup of this team. But I think this is a good team. I think this team is right up there with the 17-18 team that won 27 games.
When they go off the grid in the offseason, they go to a different country, they usually have a pretty good season after.
The other two times they've won a championship, once in the tournament and once in the regular season.
All right, let's head to the phone lines. Good morning. Welcome into the Great Scott Show. Hello.
Hey, guys. How are y'all this morning?
Good.
Hey, Jay and Scott. I turned y'all on right about the time you were talking about bowl possibilities. And, Jay, you said you had a conversation with the Independence Bowl rep?
I did.
Okay, so I've been hearing kind of from different people that the Independence Bowl will have to wait until after the Army-Navy game to put out their offers. Is that accurate?
According to my sources, no. And
okay.
And here's the reason why, Kent. If Army beats Navy, Army is 6-6, but they're still not bowl eligible. They would have to get a waiver because they have 2 FCS wins. Now, if they were to go ahead, if the Independence Bowl wants to wait and Army wins and goes 6-6 and asks for a waiver, are you going to tell the military academy they can't have it? So I guess that crack is in the doorway, but I don't think they're going to wait on Army because of the fact that Army still technically will not be bowl eligible even with a win.
Right. I hate to see someone like us do like Tech did years ago and turn down a bowl to wait for Independence Bowl and get nothing.
Well, you're not going to get nothing. You're not going to get nothing because at most you're going to have 80. Okay, so you're going somewhere. Now, might it be, right off the coast of Washington State? I don't know, but no, I don't think that's going to be. I don't think that's going to happen, Ken. It's
okay.
I'm certain the Cajuns will play somewhere. I'm certain ESPN is going to be involved in that. I still believe it's going to be the Independence Bowl, but I did not sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so I can't say that definitively.
If they want the Cajuns, that could come as probably as soon as right after championship weekend, right?
Yes.
If ESPN wants it as well. I think the Independence Bowl would love to have UL in Houston. I think they would love that.
Yeah,
I think ESPN would have to sign off on it, though.
I've been hearing so much different stuff. I looked at about 7 different sites, and they all had 7 different things. So who knows?
Yeah, and you know what? You know what those 7 sites have in common? None of them have any inside sources.
They're just plugging and playing. No, they see conference tie-in and they just plug and play.
They still got a couple places that are slotting Appalachian State who's not bowl eligible. So,
right.
And there are a couple of folks who, every time the Cajuns are bowl eligible, they automatically slot them in New Orleans. So, I put no stock into those projections because none of them have any inside sources.
Right. Okay. All right, fellas. Have a great day.
Take care.
Thank you. 26 after the hour. 103.3 The Goat simulcast on 1420. It's the greatest sports talk of all time. Scott Prather, Jay Walker. Bowl season. And for those that don't know, when Jay says they have 2 FCS wins, the rules for bowl eligibility is you're allowed 1 but not 2.
You can count one of them but not 2 of them.
Right.
So in the eyes of the committee, you're 5 and 6.
Right. Which is the waiver thing, when it comes to a military academy, does feel a little different. It's kind of like we could accept waivers from a number of teams, but if a military academy wants it, don't you almost feel like we need to give it to you? Now, I'm not saying this about the Independence Bowl. I just mean any bowl out there. The fact that you might not have enough bowl eligible teams, or you're not going to have enough bowl eligible teams. You're going to have to do a waiver for.
Well, it's going to be the NCAA that would make that decision. And but yeah, I think that if Army wins and they're 6-6 and they apply for a waiver, there's a good chance they'll get it. But this thing about you don't play until a week after the bowl bids go out.
It hurts them.
It does hurt them.
But you're never going to move that game. It's the game. It's Army, Navy. They always have their own Saturday. It's after college football season. It's before the NFL's allowed to start having Saturday games. So it's just you can't move the thing that's the biggest thing on your schedule every year. But there are times where it could come back to bite you, and this is one of them.
Yeah, it's possible.
Repeat after me, Jay. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. You don't care. You don't even know what I'm referencing.
You are correct.
I know you don't care. Man, Team USA today. Just win. Just win, baby. Just win, and it's simple. Win the game. Win
the game. Here's the caveat to that. Iran's probably better than they are.
No.
Okay, what was it? In 98, Iran beat them?
Yes, in 98. Okay. 2-1 in 98.
And you also, if you want to use comparative scores, Iran beat Wales 2-0.
Yeah, but they lost to England by 4 goals. 6-2. I'm 6-2. So if you want to compare it that way, all the U.S. has to do is win, and
all they have to do is win. I don't know that they can.
Goal difference.
They've scored 1 goal in 2 games.
Yeah,
I don't know that they got enough firepower to get it done.
Stresses me out.
It's
weird that the World Cup is right now. It's been weird, but as they always do, they've sucked me in, and now I'm all. Now they've got my emotions.
Well, and I noticed that over the weekend, Iran requested that the U.S. be expelled from the World Cup
because the USSF tweeted a picture where they had removed the flag.
Well, they had moved the emblem from the flag,
or that's what it was,
as a protest,
right? Which is not the United States men's soccer team Twitter account or anything they did, but boy, Burkhalter and Tyler Adams get in a media session, and they got Iran press there, and they're correcting them on how to pronounce the country. They're like, "Why hasn't the U.S. moved a boat out of some spot?" And they were ready for it. They were just all they did is basically respond with we're just focused on this game. We want all countries to be great. We want good for everyone. I mean, they did all they really could do in that situation. But it was good to see that they were prepared for that, and they don't want that distraction. And I think they're just go win,
4 years ago, you remember.
Oh, you gave me so much crap.
Well, it was like, okay, they didn't qualify, and it was like
4.5 years ago, and I was devastated, and you were just rubbing it in my face.
And then the World Cup came, and I was so into it that before the thing started, I picked France to win it, and they did. I'm
just un-American. You were glad the U.S. wasn't there.
No, it's not that I was glad. I really didn't care.
Blew it to Trinidad and Tobago. You're like, Scott, no one cares. I'm like, I care. Dang it.
But now that they're in, okay, now that they're in the World Cup and play is going on, I'll absolutely be rooting for them today. Go Team USA.
Just make it happen, man.
It
would be good. Look,
I'm just not optimistic.
They're one of the youngest teams there.
I'm like Kevin Foote, okay? I'll give you all the reasons why they won't win.
Well, that's like me with the Saints this season.
Right.
You got such a young team. I think really what you do now can make a big difference 4 years from now, and I think getting out of group play would be huge for them long term. Just looking at it's about now, but it's also about the future for me with the team. And U.S., Canada, and Mexico host 4 years from now.
Yeah. The team that U.S. plays next, are they the Rias?
Nah. That was Paul in 2006.
Yes.
The U.S. lost the game with, I don't know, they got beat down by Ghana in like a group play game when we were on the air and people started calling after, and Paul was so confused that he was just like, did someone say Ghana? And then he made a joke that Jay will never forget. You had to turn your mic off. You thought that was so funny.
It was funny. It was like, see, Paul always came across like he wasn't very bright, and at the same time we know that he was, and had a very quick sense of humor, but he had that persona to where when he did come out with something, it was funny as hell.
Why don't they just put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame? Kind of lost my voice. I miss Paul, man. Long-time listeners know exactly what we're talking about.
Yep.
Those that aren't, we're just know we're talking about a legend.
Your loss.
We're just talking about a legend.
It's your loss.
It didn't matter what you were talking about on Bird's Eye View, Jay. Every day, that phone would light up, and it was Paul. Good morning. Welcome into the Great Scott Show. Hello.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good.
Good. So Jay, if you're going to compare games, you have to talk details, okay? Iran beat Wales after they scored 2 goals after Wales' keeper was ejected, playing short, okay? So it's a different. It's not like they had 11 on 11 for the whole game, and they scored both their goals in extended time, like the 98th minute and the 99th minute, something like that.
Yeah, Jay.
So,
biscuit and bottled water.
Oh, he's ordering food there.
Oh yeah, I'm getting it. You wait in line long enough. You'll keep me on hold a little bit, okay? But USA is ranked about six slots above Iran in the world rankings.
Which isn't a lot. I mean, I think it's
no, it's not a lot.
And Iran's not gonna. They're not equipped to say we're just gonna hold back and focus on defense the whole time. They're gonna be aggressive. So it's gonna make for it.
And I'll go a step farther. I don't think I'm as shallow as if to say, well, Iran beat Wales, therefore they're going to beat the U.S. Not what I'm saying. I'm just suggesting that to go into this match going, oh man, it's Iran, would be a mistake.
No, it's going to be a battle.
Oh no, that's different.
I don't think that the U.S. is going to be able to, throw a soccer ball out there and that Iran's going to, lay down and die. That's not going to happen. I think Iran's very capable of winning if the U.S. doesn't play well. And my concern, I think the U.S. is really good defensively, but I don't know if they can score.
Well, and that's everybody's concern because the tie sends U.S. home.
That's correct.
They go home.
Yep.
And Iran goes on.
Just win, baby. Just win, baby.
Yep.
Just win.
Gotta win. But this is a game that if they don't win this game, the England game didn't matter. It's like the Saints. It's like the Saints, beating Tampa Bay and losing to Atlanta the next week. It takes luster off the Tampa Bay win, right?
You just don't. At this point, the only thing the Saints, I just hope they do is beat Atlanta because I got no other expectations.
Hey, I'm a Green Bay fan. You're talking to hey, trying to survive and not be ugly, okay?
Have a good one, man.
Guys, thanks a lot.
Take care. One more call, and then we got to play a classic radio call. Good morning. Welcome into the Great Scott Show.
It's me.
They call him the Bandit.
So I want to tell you all about the time I met Paul for the first and only time. Big Dave would tell me he was on Bearard Street, in Breaux Bridge, and he had this little, gas station, liquor store, all combined. He had maybe 1 or 2 pumps. And Dave would always say, oh, no, Paul's in there. If you want to meet him, just stop by. I'm like, man, I ain't. So one day I just said, to hell with it. So I walked in, and he was in the back, bald-headed man, playing solitaire cards by himself or whatever, and he walked up, and you could tell he had a few adult beverages in him. I said, are you Paul? And he just kind of looked at me, and he said, "You the bandit, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." And that was about the extent of our conversation. And I said, "Nice to meet you." I shook his hand and I left. But
nice.
That's my Paul. That's my Paul story.
That's awesome.
Bye.
Thanks.
I got a text from Kent, and he said, "Dang, just this morning I was thinking about Saint, Paul, and Big Dave, the local radio legends."
Yes, 100% legends. Stevie P went with our old boss from years ago, Mike Grimsley. Mike's just like, I want to see what this guy looks like. Steve's like, all right. So they just got in Mike's car and they drove to Brobridge, and they went in the store, and they walked in and they're like, "Paul?" Steve said he kind of like lowered his head down. He's like, "No." They said, Paul Guidroz?" He goes, "Who wants to know?" And then he's like, "It's Steve. It's Steve Peliquin from the radio." And then all of a sudden he said, Paul lit up. He's like, "Oh, Steve, come on in." he was like worried. He's like, "Man, I don't know if he thought, like we were police or something." It was like, and then he they bought like a Snickers, and Paul had like an old cigar box with cash. It wasn't like a register. I was like, that just makes him more of a legend. And they visited with him for a while. All right. We're talking about soccer. We got to go back. Shoot. What was this 2010 or 2014? I think this was
Landon Donovan?
Andres Cantor, U.S.
That would have been Landon Donovan. That would have been 2014.
Okay. In extra time, they need the win to advance out of group play. And, well, this was the reminder that whenever radio calls are in Spanish, especially when it comes to soccer, football, everywhere else in the world, there's none better than Andres Cantor.
Se lo perdió Raifi y ahora de contragolpe Donovan. Se le va larga Donovan. La quiere por derecha Altidor. Al área viene. Y le cita por arquero. Donovan, gol. ¡Gol! Después de que se había salvado el equipo de Estados Unidos de la derrota. Landon Donovan, el mejor jugador en la historia de los Estados Unidos, está convirtiendo el gol en el descuento que le consigue la clasificación a la siguiente ronda del Mundial.
That was 2010. It was against Algeria, I think, because Donovan wasn't on the 2014 team.
Okay.
And you hear the vuvuzelas, so that's
right. That's right. So 6-2. I think the first time that I became aware of Andres Cantor was maybe in 98. And the crazy thing about it was Univision had all of the matches. Andres Cantor did all of the matches and called them from a studio. So much was made of calling games remotely when COVID hit. Andres Cantor was doing that with the World Cup, more than 20 years ago. And
just game after game after game.
And as far as we know, he never got calls wrong, and so he knew all of the teams and all of the. And he was the first one to make goal something that you could have a contest to see who was best at it.
Talking about legends today, that guy.
Yeah.